Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's IncrediChat. I'm Michael Grassia. Mike Lopez will not be joining us tonight, but he will definitely be here next week with our guest. Well, I'll tell you who it is at the end of tonight's show. And I want to also remind you, our friend Tim Bending's show is starting tonight on TLC at 10 p.m. The World's Smallest Woman, Meet Jody. Please go DVR that. It's going to be a great show. I already have mine DVR'd because I'm probably going to still be doing this when the show starts if we go long. I'm really looking forward to it. So let me bring on, in 2 seconds, our guests. I want to tell you, though, quickly how I reached out to these guests. Last Saturday, bored out of my mind. I own a bunch of streaming services: Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, DC streaming app, the whole thing. And I couldn't find anything to watch. And then I said, let me check out Amazon. And this popped up because I watch a lot of like old movie serials and such. And it's called Space Captain, Captain of Space. And I watched it. It's an hour and a half of it's a comedic love letter to the classic sci-fi genre of the movie serials. And the next morning, so I watched it late at night. The next morning, I reached out to them on Facebook. It's No Tea Production. So here are No Tea Production. We got Jeremy Mather and Lindsey and Jeff Sproul. So let's bring them on. We got hello, Jeremy, and hello, Jeff and Lindsey.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, guys. And before we begin, I want to scroll down your social media so people can find you and look you guys up. All right. So here we go. And this is your stuff: No Tea Production and Space Captain Movie, right? Or is it Space? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to make sure I have it up correctly. So, for those who we got a comment already, let me check this out. We've got Carl Kohler, who is a fan and a watcher of this, says hello. So, hello, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
And you guys should be able to see the comments on the side. If anything you want to reach out to, if I'm talking or you're talking or want to bring it, just let me know. But I'll try to get to every comment. So tell us a little bit, whoever wants to start. I don't want to call people out. Whoever wants to start, just tell us your background. How did you guys get into, if you want to say theater or film or just acting, writing, whatever it was, what was it that got you into that?
Well, so personally, I have been doing, there's my mom. Hello, Mom. I've been doing theaters, since I was a kid, really. And I didn't major in theater in college, so I found other ways of kind of scratching that creative itch. And I think that's kind of what No Tea Productions ended up being. Jeff and I, when we were dating, we were both New York City people. We were both sort of like, working in the working world. And we were just creatively frustrated. We didn't have any kind of outlet for the things we wanted to be doing. So we created No Tea Productions really because we were just needing to work, to do theater, to put on performances. Jeff is a writer. And we have a lot of actor friends. And so we just kind of started, and then 10 shows and I don't know, 12 years later.
Yeah.
Something like that. We then decided to tackle a movie. That was kind of the journey for me.
Yeah. For myself, just as a nerdy little boy with no athletic talent or interests in anything that wasn't just fun to do and play. I wanted to get into like acting and that sort of thing, like from an early age, and then did some of that in high school. Then in college, I was a theater major and a philosophy minor, and then got to New York, got involved with some late acting school out here, and then that kind of led to like doing a lot of improv and then sketch writing. And then I was like, oh, actually, I like writing as well. And that I ended up being like the writer in a couple different like sketch groups, and then Just kind of branched out from there. The acting school that I went to in New York, it's no longer around. It's called the New Actors Workshop. But one of my really good friends from there was named Tim Mather, still one of my closest friends. And not long after he'd been here, his brother Jeremy here comes out to New York, and we became great friends as well. And he was also just an incredibly like funny, artistic person, writer, and filmmaker and editor. I'll let him tell his own bio, but we were friends, and so it was natural that when we started No T Productions, that people like Jeremy and his brother Tim and other friends, other creative friends we'd met over the years, we were gonna bring them into the fold, and they definitely did. And it became like a company of not only doing like a lot of really fun shows, but like a lot of really good friends too. We made a lot of new ones over the years too, since we were doing shows. So that's my story for it.
And Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because I would say, first of all, that I moved to New York when I was 18, and I met Jeff maybe the first week I was here, and that was 1996. So we've known each other since then, and we started doing sketch comedy shows probably within a few years after that. Just, Jeff writing shows and me acting and doing silly characters, and a lot of those shows usually required me to do some kind of falling because I was good at physical comedy. So I loved doing silly slapstick stuff. I'm like obsessed with like Kramer from Seinfeld and like different, those old kind of really goofy slapstick comedy. And anytime Jeff needed somebody to be a little over the top or to fall, he would kind of lean into those kind of strengths for me and to just be a silly person. But I've always been interested in filmmaking. When I got involved with No T Productions, it was really fun because, and that was really an offshoot of us doing sketch comedy stuff, but I was really into doing the theater stuff, but I've always been a film nerd. So it was a great transition for me when Jeff brought the Space Captain thing to the table as like another show we were going to do. I was like, cool, let's, it was kind of already on the plate from Jeff's perspective to actually have it be film worthy as well. So it was an obvious mix for us to sort of add film into the mix.
That's cool. I said in the intro, and I told you before we even went on, I'm a huge fan of this movie. It's one of my, I think it's going to fall under one of my guilty pleasure films. It's like, it's up there with Hudson Hawk for me. I love Hudson Hawk. It's like a terribly good film, and I kind of feel like that's kind of the same thing. It's just funny. You sit back and you just enjoy. And if you like the genre of the sci-fi movie serials, it just really, like I said, it's a love letter to it. It's there's so many tropes in there, and just everything is it's just fun. I don't know what else to say about it. It's fun. Now, when you guys created it, I think I read it started, and I don't know if you said it, Jeremy. It started as like a stage thing, and then you brought it over. So, can you tell me about the stage? How did that start, and how was it received on stage?
Well, yeah, we'd done a couple multimedia shows before where we'd had like some projected video. We'd done a couple of those with No T, and we really enjoyed doing it. And I knew I wanted to do that with this one when I was writing the script, because it did start off as a stage play with a lot of like video segments. And part of that was in the interest of like keeping things moving, so we didn't have to do like scene changes and stuff. We could have like projected video while we're doing a couple quick shifts, so we could just keep the whole thing feeling like a movie. And then we could also do things like the crawls, like there's like the little crawl sequences that happen throughout. We did those. And
and we could also have people flying through space and have space. The spaceship battles actually that we did in the live show weren't even filmed. We had so the styrofoam ships that you see in the film were created for the stage play, and we put them on little sticks, and we had a little puppet black thing that came out, and all of these epic space battles were done with these little styrofoam puppets.
I'm gonna grab one real quick.
Yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
get one and we can like show it off.
It was very like Ed Wood style, because I almost feel like that was the kind of stuff he used to do, where it was like people with paper plates on a string or something, but they're trying to make a movie. I mean, we were doing stage stuff, but it was literally just.
Yeah, like it was meant to be, and it's like, this epic music is playing and you see this little like styrofoam thing come out and it's like, oh, boom, boom. Like it was so much fun. So that was part of the stage play, is this idea of like terrible special effects. And then so yes, these are some of our styrofoam creations that we would have. Literally, you can see it was on a stick down here.
Yeah.
And we would like, puppet it around, puppeteer it across the stage.
I'm blanking on the name. That's the
X-1 rocket ship. Yes.
X1, yeah, I remember X1, and that was
one of the many Death Saucers. Yes.
Yeah. So there you see how big they are.
That is the only X1 ship, I believe, in existence. I believe we made one ship, and it is anytime you see that, that's the same thing.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we would go back and forth, we would have characters like on the stage doing a scene. They would run off the stage and then you would see them come on we would project a little, the next scene would be a filmed scene and they would run on the projection screen and do a little filmed bit. So we actually had a good, maybe not even a third of it.
I would say about 25 to 30% of it was pre-filmed material, and a majority of it was on stage scenes. Which, and I don't want to take over, cut you off, Lindsey, but one of the things that we did on stage or attempted to do, I think it was mostly successful, was to try to do a black and white live production. So everybody was wearing like caked makeup and hair stuff and the costumes were all designed in kind of a grayscale look. And then we tried to get the lighting in such a way so that the audience for the live production was also watching sort of a black and white movie, and that it would match the video content that we were playing throughout. I think that was only partially successful. I think mostly the joke played well to the audience, even though we didn't have a lot of control in the theater. We were doing this with some of the lighting was very warm toned and just like looked yellow. Like we couldn't really change that, but we sure gave it our all. And I feel like the audience totally got that and thought it was really funny that we were all wearing this like silver and gray makeup to try to
the costumes, like you said, were of course all done like in grayscale. I should point out that our costume designer, Caroline O'Hare, is actually in chat right now, and she did an amazing job on all those costumes.
Yeah, the costumes sold it really well. The makeup definitely melted off people's faces, and like Jeremy said, we were also doing all of our shows at the time in rep. We were off-off-Broadway, and we were one of the repertory theaters that was, that would cycle in and out of a theater space. Yeah. So you don't have a ton of say over lighting and what is kind of going on. You can't make major, changes. Yeah. And so like Jeremy said, like a lot of those lights were just straight up yellow, and they kind of ruined the black and white thing we were trying to do. But it was, for the most part, I do think that it was like fun. The costumes being the most successful part, and those are the costumes you see in the movie as well.
That was gonna be our next question. Also, is the cast from the theater the cast from in film, or so everybody basically played their same roles from theater?
Except for one person.
Yeah, everybody except for one person. We lost one person who had played Lady Actilus, and she wasn't able to reprise her role because she had moved to DC to go on to NPR. She was like doing a bunch of voiceover work for them there, so she wasn't able to do that. But everybody else is the cast.
Another one of whom is actually in chat right now, Michelle Mcnally, who played my daughter, Princess Astra.
Just terrible.
And amazing. Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah.
She was
really
great actress.
Awful daughter. Yeah.
I gotta say, I mean, I'm gonna say this about everyone, but I loved all the characters in there, the way they played them. She just played a really great. She was like kind of spoiled, stubborn, and I don't like to curse online, but kind of bitchy too a little bit. And I'm like, she did it perfect. And I was saying this off screen before. Jeff, you were great as the evil king. And but Jeremy, your character to me, just the energy you put in there, the humor that you gave, might be my all-time favorite character in that movie. Everybody was great. I don't remember the actors and actresses' name. I accidentally closed out of the IMDb I had, so I gotta say. But the other female lead, I loved her. Constantly. I don't want to give it away.
Alicia Barnachet.
Alicia.
I don't want to give away what she does, but her little trademark move was just hysterical, to me. Anytime something serious happens, or even not so serious.
We're having a real reunion here too, because also Mike Wersch, who played Commander Nefarious, my second in command, is actually just popped in the chat as well. So hi, Mike.
Say, hello, Mike. Hello, Michelle. Nancy, that's your mom, right?
Yeah.
I want to
Caroline O'Hare that's in there. She did all the costumes. So
I have to say, just it's absolutely lovely and imperative when you're making work just because you love it and you want to, and you're surrounding yourself with friends. It's just the best thing in the world. And I feel like our movie, I feel like you can tell that everybody in the film gets along with one another and had a connection in real life. And that's why we had the safety to just play and have fun and be big and silly and crazy. It's imperative to do work with the people who you are.
I agree. Number one, it had perfect chemistry. But what you're talking about, me and my friends, we comics, animation, whatever we help each other out all the time. I mean, if someone's busy on a project or whatever, here, can you ink a couple of pages or whatever? We share. We do it when we can, when we have our own schedule. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's great. Working with friends always brings the best work when you have great chemistry, and that was easy to see on screen.
I would say too, to that point, I'm not sure how clear this is at all, and hopefully it's not, but we actually did the live production back in 2012, and we basically made the movie over weekends and whenever we could get the people together over the next however many years it's been, until we basically finished it early last year or early this year.
towards the end of the... Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I'm just saying that you finished it early last year. I believe I saw something that said 2014 was when it was completed somewhere. Maybe on IMDb or
something. I think that's on IMDb. It says that, because that was the year we put it on IMDb, I think, because we may have screened like an earlier version of it at some local places in New York, and it's changed a lot since then. Well, not a lot, but it's changed fairly significantly since then. And
we might have finished filming principal photography at that point.
I think so. I feel like we did a majority of the filming earlier on, and then there was little bits and pieces that we kind of peppered throughout the next several years. I do know because I did a lot of the editing that there's one.
All the editing.
I did all the editing. There's one cut in the movie that I love because within one scene, it basically jumps 4 years within one cut, and you kind of can't tell. It's pretty smooth. The actors all looked the same, and everybody's wearing the same excellent clothing.
Yeah, Michelle Mcnally did have a wig because at some point she got a pretty drastic haircut. So at some point in the film, if you really are looking closely, you can see that her hair is a wig, but it looks just like her real hair. Other scenes.
The only hair issue, weirdly enough, was with Dr. Carlock. My good friend, Jared Warner, played Dr. Horst Carlock, the inventor,
very funny,
the Dr. Zarkov kind of character. He got, I don't know what was going on, but he was getting haircuts every other week, and his hair in every scene is just a completely different length. It starts off, he's kind of slicked it onto his head, and then he stopped doing that, and then it was short, and then it's long, and it was amazing.
At the beginning, he said he was going to have a hair journey. He had decided from the beginning, from that first scene where we're in actually the light booth of the theater where we did a lot of our productions. That's the X1 cockpit that you see. So they were all crammed in the light booth, and he had his hair like slicked way down into kind of a V on his head, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna have a whole hair journey where, you know, at the beginning it's gonna be kind of like slicked down, and then by the end it's gonna be all wild and crazy. And I think it just
you know, he did something like that.
I didn't notice it until you just said it to me. I could think back and see the scenes and how his hair changed.
Yeah.
But I didn't even notice it throughout the entire film.
Right. Well, he is in captivity a lot, so who knows how much time has passed. I mean,
what was I gonna? Oh, I wanted to ask, just quickly, getting back to the theater aspect. How long was it playing in theater? You said you were traveling between, like, you know, was it repertory? It goes between the different theaters, right? Was that?
No, for us, the repertory meant that lots of different shows cycled through the same theater at the same time. So we would unpack our whole set from like the little closet they gave us and do our show, and then have to like repack it into the closet because the 10 o'clock show like had shown up.
It was minimal set.
It was a pretty minimal set.
I'm gonna say my theater knowledge is kind of small. I've done some like puppet theater work, but I was never on like any type of stage or doing anything like that. It was more traveling shows, and so I don't know much about how the actual theater world works.
Totally.
So I apologize. I mean, I love theater. Don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes I prefer that to movies. I love the experience of sitting in and having this immersive, interactive thing with the audience. You know, we clap at the same time. We gasp at the same time. You know, that doesn't always happen in a movie theater. I like that theater aspect. And when my wife and I can go, we try to get to theater as much as we can. But I don't know like the behind the scenes stuff as much. I mean, I get the technical aspect of it, but like terminology and how things.
It's funny. I would say when Jeff first showed me his original treatment for this show, where it was basically the stage production. I think if my memory serves you, Jeff, you had given me like a 3 or 4 page outline of the whole plot.
All the scenes and stuff.
Yeah, all the scenes were kind of like described. You kind of had it all thought through, and you knew which segments were going to be video and which stuff was going to be live. And I remember reading through and thinking, A, this sounds so funny and really exciting. And B, I was like, this is literally impossible. And I have no idea how we would pull any of this off on stage or as a movie. Like, I was like, so we pretty much had to figure it out as we went. And I guess we did.
Yeah, that's kind of that's No T's whole thing.
Yeah.
we figured it out as we go. We make the plans, and then we figure out how to make the plans happen.
So we got a comment here from Nancy. Much funnier than Planet 9. Just saying. Is that a little biased there, you think, or is it?
Yeah.
She might be a little biased.
She called Plan 9 Planet 9.
Oh, my mom. But the show actually ran for I think 3 weeks. Which is a general sort of off-Broadway run. There were, I think, 9 shows in all.
It was a big hit with like the audiences were really enjoying it, and we were really enjoying doing it. We all, like Lindsey was saying earlier, we all were having such a good time. A lot of us worked together before. We had some new people in this one, like Matt Wise, who played our Rocky Laser, and Mike Wersh, who played Commander Nefarious, and stuff. But we all had a good time. We were like, at some point, kind of towards the end, I started bringing it up to these guys, like, what if we just like shot the scenes that we don't already have? And we, I don't remember which one of us even started bringing that up. I think we were all kind of like thinking of it at the same time, and we kind of tried it, tested it out with like the cast, like over drinks after a show one night, and everybody was just down, and everybody was really enthusiastic about doing it. And yeah, we spent the next couple months after the show ended shooting the rest of the movie. And
then, just like, just kind of guerrilla style, like in parks and wherever we could figure out to film things.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask, because like the sets look like it's your living room sometimes, and you put some cardboard on the back of a chair to make your throne or something. And I'm like, I love that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the props and how you approach the prop making for this, with the ray guns, you already showed the styrofoam ship, so we know that, but like how did you go about the prop design for and set design, if you will, for this?
Well, the set design was pretty much nothing. I'll talk about sort of the location stuff in a minute, but all of the props.
I'll mention the props. Like for the costumes, I went to Caroline, and Caroline had agreed to do the costumes, and she'd done costume work for us before, and she's amazing. She's one of my oldest friends, and just incredibly dedicated and awesome at everything she does. So I gave her kind of like some little sketches and some like ideas, like this is the kind of look I'm going. I wanted, like, because they always noticed in those old 30s things, they were always wearing shorts. Like all these dudes are wearing these shorts, like a long sleeve shirt and shorts. Or at least that was even true of like some of the old comics and things. And so I wanted to keep that. I thought that would just be a funny bit, and she just knocked it out with that. The props. I'm actually a graphic designer and like art person for like my day job, and so I like sketched out all the ships and just made them kind of as classic as possible. And then we bought up a bunch of styrofoam and a little styrofoam like they're really fun actually, these little things to cut styrofoam with. It's like this little tiny metal prong that just comes out of this thing and it heats up.
It's like a heat knife, I think.
Yeah. Yes.
I've used those too. I love those.
And we just just cut them all out and pasted them together in our living room here. And so that was the props. And then a lot of it stuff was bought from the big Halloween store in just south of Union Square, like some of the ray guns and swords and things, and some of the the Centurion costumes.
Oh yeah, the Centurion costumes
like
are
with
legit,
the helmets and stuff.
Halloween costumes.
out of curiosity, if I remember, you only had 2 actors playing the Centurions throughout the entire. It was this great running gag that they were supposed to be different people, I believe, but they were it was always the 2, and I cracked up at that too.
Yeah,
I love it.
Our friends Dave Wolchek and Jesse Bernath.
But in terms of the set design, we relied a lot on the locations that we found for the most part. So we filmed in parks. We filmed actually in office buildings in New York City, and you can see definitely the throne room, Xayno's throne room, is 100% just in an office building, and we gave it a throne, but there's an exit sign. There's definitely it's just an office building. It's a very cool looking office.
We're not
building,
sure we were supposed to have actually been filming in some of the places.
So we're not going to say the name.
So we're not going to
That's what guerrilla shooting's all about, right?
Exactly. But several of the scenes were actually we relied also very heavily on a very large roll of brown butcher paper. So the cave, Actilus's cave, again, we were in one of the theater spaces. Caroline wants us to tell everybody where we were for the.
Let me just interrupt real quick. I'm sorry. Carl has a question, a comment. He says, "Sounds a bit like Captain Proton from Star Trek Voyager." I'm only a Next Gen fan. I don't know who Captain Proton is. So,
we are very much Next Gen fans as well. But Captain Proton is like an old serial.
Is it? I don't remember.
Yeah. It's one of the old serials that they would play. These are Space Captain is a play off of these big adventure serials like Flash Gordon and Captain Proton and Undersea Kingdom that they would play before the talkies, before the movies.
I don't remember Captain Proton, so.
He's one of the ones that came up in
cool
the research.
So anyway, I'm sorry. Getting back to what you were saying.
So Caroline actually, Caroline at the time was working at Viacom, so she led us into the Viacom studios, and they are kitted out in weird. Every floor looks interesting and bizarre.
Yeah.
So we.
It was a treasure trove of retro looking environments.
Yeah, really strange. At some point you see inside Nefaris's ship, and it's just all these weird lights on arms, and that was there.
To be fair, Jeremy composited a bunch of stuff in
a little bit, yeah.
So, but anything that looks too expensive of a set for us to have possibly been able to do, that was at Viacom. And anything that looks we're for example, the cave where it's there's a bunch of crumpled big brown paper thing to try to make it.
It's just a bunch of
that was
crumpled
just us doing
paper.
what we could. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, although the ending scene, the
That's the
shot
one I wanted to talk
inside the
about.
spaceship, inside the galley of the X-1, that was actually done in our living room with a bunch of just like paper hung pretty amazingly, and
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
just
believe
like-
how well that turned out.
Yeah, it's just like, the butcher paper hung in, like, you can see where it kind of overlaps a little bit, and it adds a little bit of a...
I kept thinking of it as like Guggenheim Museum style.
It
where
totally
it's
looks like the Guggenheim.
But it's like big strips of brown paper that we just hung sort of creatively, and it looked pretty cool on camera. So we're like, done.
You know, it's interesting. I got to go back.
On the wall and
I want to go back and rewatch this just now, just to look at your sets and props now. Do that. The other prop that we talked a little bit about before we came on were your puppets. You want to talk a little bit about the puppets?
The puppets are wonderful. Yeah, we originally commissioned those puppets for a show that we had done, a stage show that we had done called the Kentucky Goblin Siege. Jeff, do you want to just like very quickly say what that's about?
It's basically, if you look up like the Kelly Hopkinsville like alien encounter, like on Wikipedia, there's like this, it's like this one of the largest like mass settings of allegedly like alien creatures in U.S. history. It takes place in the 1950s in this really tiny town called Kelly, Kentucky, and I wrote a play about that. It's got a little bit of Night of the Living Dead feel / sci-fi comedy / just this weird sort of deconstruction of like archetypes and everything, and and they were made for that. They were the alien puppets in that. And,
so Jeff had actually drawn what these aliens looked like to him, and so we kind of just took these sketches that came out of his bizarre brain.
Yeah.
And we found a puppet maker who was an intern at a place called Puppet Heap, which is an incredible puppet making studio. Like they did a lot of the Muppet stuff for those the new Muppet movies,
the Jason Segel ones.
The Jason Segel one. So when I went there a couple of times, and it was like full of like chickens, and like there's Miss Piggy, and I was like, this is amazing. But so she was an intern there. And she had a family emergency and had to leave the city for a little while, and the people at Puppet Heap were incredible, and basically said, well, you're in the middle of this freelance puppet project, and we're just going to take it over. And the people here at Puppet Heap are going to finish this project for you.
Wow.
So we ended up with this guy named Tom McLaughlin, did a lot of work on the puppets, and he is a puppet artist who has done the rubber skins for other like very iconic, like Miss Piggy created the skin for her, and for Yoda.
Wow.
Which is pretty much Jeff's like proudest
Star Wars. Yeah,
moment.
I was like, there's a connection between Space Captain and Star Wars. Yeah, no.
And he liked it. Like he had told our puppet maker Anna. He had told her that it was like his pet project. He just really loved working on our puppets, our little goblins, which he was doing like in between all of his other major work that he was doing.
Wow.
That's
That's awesome. To have that Star Wars connection, I mean, so
Mhm.
iconic. And speaking of Star Wars, and I wasn't going to really go into Star Wars, but and you kind of mentioned a few of the names already, but I was wondering which like movie serials really just kind of inspired you to make this movie. I mean, obviously you look at Star Wars, and Lucas looked at the old movie serials too that influenced that. So what was it? What were the ones that like you watched maybe as a kid or whenever that said, I need to make something in this vein?
Well, yeah, Star Wars was the big one, and I'm old enough to have been in the theater back in 1977 with my dad, seeing the original Star Wars on day one, and and it's it changed my life right there, and I was like, okay, then my whole childhood became about Star Wars, and then. Yeah, I was kind of introduced at a certain point. I think probably just finding it really, I think I'm by myself on like TV, like on a Saturday, occasionally like finding like an old like Flash Gordon or an old Buck Rogers or Undersea Kingdom or some kind of crazy stuff like that, and just I think I actually I'm kind of proud of myself for even having seen Star Wars, but just kind of accepting these things even just for what they were, for the limitations of what the special effects and things could do at the time. I got really into those as well, and really went down this whole deep dive on like sci-fi and stuff, and I got really into like the old Doctor Who's and stuff when I was a kid. So it was just a little bit like who I was as growing up, and then I knew that I guess when I was like starting like the idea for this, I knew I wanted to set something in that world because I thought it'd be something we could do, because we can make as many like cheesy like old plastic things as we want and make it like this big production. I wasn't even thinking about in terms of making a movie at first, and but that's something we could do on budget, and it might be really fun to play around with those tropes and also thinking that how much of that influenced Star Wars. And so I had this really kind of complicated idea in my head. It's just like, well, kind of like almost pretend like this movie actually is from that era, and this is one of the things that actually then eventually a young George Lucas saw, and he was influenced by, and so he's came with X-wing fighters based on the X-1 rocket ship, and it was probably just me just getting overly excited about my own crap, but it was like I that was a little bit of what it was, and I feel like
it all folds together, because like while that obviously all bleeds together in your sensibility, Jeff, I also feel like when we were working on it, we kept referencing, I feel like for me it was Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon the most. Like there were so many references to that kind of stuff, and then recognizing that it was like, oh, people are going to think this is maybe from Star Wars, but Star Wars actually took it from Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon or whatever.
The crawls and stuff. And
exactly. And I always felt like if there was anything too Star Wars-y, I liked going back from an editing and special effects perspective and being like, well, what did they do in the older movies or shows and serials and make it look kind of like that? We also very much leaned into our low budget on this and just gave ourselves a little bit of forgiveness of like, oh yeah, well, we can't really afford this to look good, or there's some kind of sloppy filmmaking thing. It's kind of Ed Wood-ish, and we're gonna like just accept it as part of the style, And I feel like that played pretty well into the comedy of the movie.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Jeremy brought a lot of that sort of into the filmmaking of it, and like I'm thinking especially of the moment where where Clark's ship lands on the planet, and it's just like the ship is made to look like an acorn, because Clark is a squirrel man, and we have this whole sequence of it, kind of like this ship's like slowly coming down onto the planet, and there's smoke everywhere, and you see the planet.
Grandiose and very dramatic. Yeah,
it's very dramatic, and the planet's surface is coming closer, and the ship comes down, and then it just cuts to. I think it was on my driveway. Yeah,
we just dropped the styrofoam ship on the driveway as the final reveal of like, and it actually broke.
And it
breaks a little bit. It severs a little bit in the middle. You can see, yeah.
It broke. It broke.
I eventually want to get talking to effects with Jeremy a little bit. Before I get into that, Lindsey, both you and Jeremy co-directed this. How did you guys work together? Did he do certain scenes, you do certain scenes, or did you do it together? How's the working process?
So I had originally directed the stage production, but I don't know how to direct a movie. I have not, Jeremy is so in the filmmaking world, and had he's created a lot of his own films. He's a filmmaker. He is also uniquely positioned to direct a film because he was also the editor of the film, so he knew exactly what he needed for every shot, which was incredible. So he did all of the shooting of everything, and so when we went to film, I was kind of I was making sure that the actors were doing their stuff. I was helping, but Jeremy is sort of the, definitely what you see from the camera is his.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would kind of feel like we talked about this a lot because it's a little sloppier than like a normal, really clear-cut role situation. And because Lindsey had done so much work with the actors on stage, we really didn't change that much. So I almost felt like I was doing an adaptation of our own show when we were filming it. And we changed a little bit of the blocking for camera than what we had done and had worked on stage, depending on the needs of the scenes or whatever. But it really felt like collaborative because we weren't changing the performances at that point. We weren't really changing a lot of stuff that had already been established. Even though I would say I did kind of take over in a filmmaking realm, she was already there. She was always there, and Jeff was always there as the writer, and the three of us kind of just collaborated constantly while we were shooting. So at the end of the day, we were like, how do we credit ourselves on this thing? Because it's a little weirder of how we even put it together. And we were just like, let's just share it. It's who cares? Like, yeah.
That's great. As I've done some editing myself, so I'm just curious, Jeremy, the way you edited, you did obviously the special effects as well. I don't need, program wise or whatever, but what was your idea behind it? Because Jeff wrote the story. You guys did it in theater. You brought it to film, but the camera, as you mentioned, it was your own adaptation, kind of, you felt. So the camera's kind of your eye. How was that? How was your editing process? How was the editing process for you?
Yeah.
And deciding on how to handle the effects for it?
It's kind of an interesting question because on the one hand, I would say there was a certain percentage of stuff that I was ambitiously wanting to do. And then the amount of time we actually had actors and the limitations of our own crappy gear and the locations and stuff, I often was like cutting half of the shots that I thought would be really cool and just making do with what we could get. The actors were all so game with just like being there and doing the stuff that I tried to cover the scenes from a directorial from a cinematography situation as editable as possible. So it was like some of the shots are a little more simplistic. I would say the special effects were done on a kind of as needed basis. I feel like even when we were shooting, I didn't always know what the plan would be for the special effects. It was more like in the editing, I'm like, oh, there should be a couple lasers that go through here. Let me figure out how to do a couple lasers, and then what's a great sound effect for that? Let me find a good sound effect. I was kind of piecemealing it together. I don't know if there was always a plan. There were a couple things very planned. For example, Jeff had written in, for example, that there's this like giant cat beast, and we knew we were going to film just a house cat, an intercut between a house cat and them fighting, and that kind of stuff. I would quickly say, fun fact is, if you go back and watch it, in that scene there is a shot where the cat paw swoops down on Rocky Laser and knocks him out. That's actually somebody off screen just swinging. That was Lindsey off screen swinging Clarf's tail that we had.
The squirrel man.
Yeah, the squirrel man. Just quick enough that you see some fluffy thing go through the frame, and it's like, oh, that's cat paw now. And that, that kind of thing worked pretty well. That sort of stuff was planned a little bit, but a lot of the space battle stuff had to be sort of retranslated from what we did on stage because, for maybe obvious reasons, I thought, like, especially the opening battle, it's like, this is the opening of the movie. It's got to be really fun and exciting. And we were kind of just, inventing and choreographing how to animate these, I always think of it almost like South Park style, which is that it's very 2D. Everything's almost always flying this way. There's not a lot of like stuff spinning in 3D space. It's a lot of stuff flying sideways. And that was honestly just kind of figured out bit by bit. And I also redid all the special effects at some point through the editing process. So I feel like somewhere around 2015 or 2016, I actually had like improved what I could handle special effects wise and decided to revisit a lot of stuff and redid a lot of the rocket boot fight in the sky when they're fighting with Baron Osric and sword fighting in space with these boots that somehow are, jetpack shoes.
The rocket boots.
The rocket boot. Yeah, the rocket boots. But I was able to add some effects to the rocket boot jets and like change the sky and the cloud stuff in the background, and that was all kind of just figured out. Honestly, scene by scene, we just kind of like, what does this need, and then what do we do to solve these problems as we go.
That's great. We got a comment from Jeff Bruno who says, "Heard enough. Now I have to watch it." I love that you said that, but also, Jeff, please stay till the end, then go watch it. This is people are great. I'm having a great time talking with you guys and learning more about this.
It'll still be there, Mr. Brennan.
My background, like I said, is in animation, so I have a little bit more of a filmmaking background than I have of the theater stuff. Although I did work in puppet theater a little bit, so this is all just everything here is fascinating to me. It's everything that I love. I think you said it off screen. It was Jeff who said that I'm basically your target audience. I'm just a big fanboy who loves anything to deal with science fiction. I'm a Star Wars guy, but you may get mad at me for this. I'm actually more of a Stargate guy these days than a Star Wars guy.
Stargate.
Yeah, I love Stargate. That was always.
I haven't done enough of a dive on Stargate. I saw the original movie, and I remember loved that when the old James Spader, and Kurt Russell one. Yeah, and I never.
Is that the MacGyver one?
Yeah. Well, that's
There's a couple different series of that, right?
Yeah. No, they had Stargate Sg-1, which was the first. Then they had Stargate Atlantis, and then Stargate Universe. And the only reason I liked it eventually more than Star Wars, is because I'm a big fan of mythology, fables, folklore.
Sure.
A lot of my work kind of translated into that realm. So, like when I saw them kind of combining that, I fell in love more with Stargate than Star Wars. But I still big stars. I mean, I bring my phone over here just to show you guys if I can get it off. Mandalorian, is my phone company. So I'm like, don't worry, Star Wars is always there. But it started, like you said, it changed your life. It changed my life. I was only a year old when the movie came out, so I couldn't see it in the theater. But it changed the whole industry of how comics, cartoons, films, everything was made. So it was a major influence, and I love that. How it influences other creators to create something in that world, even if it's not officially lightsabers and laser swords and whatever you want to call it, but you're still doing science fiction. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because even though obviously they had way more money, the principles of the special effects we were doing are not that dissimilar. They're building little ships out of models and flying, a lot of that stuff was kind of lo-fi even at that time. I feel like Lucas was trying to do a lot of that stuff too, just puppets and models, and definitely they had more money, but
we
had the same.
We had actually seriously like 3 feet to my right now. Lindsey sitting on the floor with the ships on like a in front of a green screen that hung over our bookshelf here, and Jeremy with his camera just like asking her, it's like, now have it like spin around and just it's hilarious.
I basically collected a lot of bits like that where we just filmed ships in front of nothing, and then I animated them in the editing and manipulated all that individual ship shots and just like animated them flying around the screen in funny, weird ways.
We got a couple of more comments here. Liz Phelps says, "Love it."
Liz.
Someone you know? Or?
Yeah, a friend of my mom's.
It's fantastic. I had a friend in college whose uncle made a movie it was an indie film. I don't remember the name of it right now. But I loved the film when I watched it, and everyone loved the film when they watched it, but no one knows of it, So anytime family, friends, whoever can promote it, help you out, and I'm all for that. Joseph Bruno says, "I didn't say I'd have to watch it immediately." Okay, thank God. And says, "Can't you love them all?" Yes, I love everything. I hope everybody loves everything, but I have my favorites,
Listen, Jeff is very much, as I think you can tell, 100% a Star Wars guy. And I have always been a Star Trek person, a next gen person specifically.
Yeah.
When we met, we were able to connect over Harry Potter, so that worked. But then we were a little bit. But you know what? I really, I was also like not a Star Wars fan.
I hadn't done enough.
I'm a nerd. I'm a Star Wars fan, but like.
I hadn't done enough of a deep dive on Star Trek 2, and then we watched all of. She finally got me to watch like all of Next Generation, which I'd only seen like little bits and pieces of here and there growing up, and then I was like, "Oh my god, this show's amazing!" Yeah,
so watched it all twice.
She converted me, yeah. So, and I'm looking forward to the third time.
I just want to sidetrack off this world, but sticking with Star Wars because I'm a huge Disney geek. I actually have my Buzz Lightyear shirt on, just kind of in honor of the space, captain here. Have you been to the Star Wars land in Disney World yet?
No.
All I'm going to say is when I saw the Millennium Falcon in person, I cried. I literally stood there for 15 minutes and I teared up. So if you're that diehard of a Star Wars fan, it's a must visit.
Yeah, it is on the list once it is safe to do so. But
yes. I follow a lot, so I know they just did a soft opening. I don't know how it went, but yeah, I'm waiting a while before I go.
Yeah. They have COVID in space? Is that can we go there?
Amazing.
Joseph Bruno did point out, by the way, that Star Trek started it all, but I like them all, and definitely props to Star Trek for
oh yeah, totally.
1960s getting that whole sci-fi thing started.
Bringing that up, yeah.
Back up.
I'm sorry, I just blanked on the question I wanted to ask you since we sidetracked for a minute. I was going to ask you this at the end, but while I remember my question, this is for Jeff and this is for Jeremy. Can you give us a little bit of your character from the movie?
Yeah. I would say Chip Skipper was a little inspired by Pee Wee Herman for some reason. I'm not sure where that came from, but I was channeling my Pee Wee. Yeah.
I think I told you off air that Jeremy, when I was writing it, he was the person I had in mind to do Chip Skipper. I was like, I can't see another human being other than Jeremy playing this part. So, forgive me if I actually brought that up while we were on here, but you will stand at attention in the realm of King Xayno. You should be thrown into the pit of loud snapping fingers that will irritate you day and night. You will not be able to sleep, and you will gently go insane. I say gently, but I mean, probably non-gently, whatever the word is for non-gently.
Violently.
That will happen to you.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds great.
We had a scene, actually, there was a scene that we had to cut because it didn't go anywhere, where Chip and Xayno met very briefly. There was where you find out that Xayno and Rocky were both going to see Lady Actilus. I won't spoil what it is, but Xayno had just finished seeing Lady Actilus, and Rocky was coming in. He was with Chip, and there was this one little big awkward moment where he's just like, you shall be disintegrated. And I'm saying to Rocky, and so shall you be,
Chip.
Pointing at Chip. Yeah, and then we.
I forgot about that. Yeah, they never actually meet. Yep. In the current version of the movie, Chip and Xayno actually never cross paths, actually.
For a reason that I will not spoil, but that is one of my very favorite running gags in the whole film.
Chip's character, right? You're talking about? Yeah, mine too. I think that's one of the things that did it for me was every time stuff happened. I don't want to spoil anything. I want everyone to enjoy it. I want everyone to see it and burst out laughing every time stuff happens with when Chip's on screen. It really is great. And it's funny, like, your characters. I feel, Jeff, your character was the most overacted character, if you will, like the way your character was. You kind of played that, how do I say it? Who did it remind me of?
I tried to do an impression, as much as I'm not very good at impressions, as Lindsey will tell you. But I was trying to do a little bit of I was Charles Middleton, who played the original Ming from the old. So I was trying to do a little bit of his affected sort of, speaking and yeah, that was and I remember, and I think I saw it on one of the serials. So even in the beginning when we're doing like the cast and like, Jeff Sproul as King Xayno, I'm doing this thing with my eyes, and it's because I saw the evil guy doing some kind of thing like that. And I don't know if it was Ming, but somebody was doing that at the beginning of one of the serials that I watched, the many serials I watched in prepping
gazing evilly, just like.
And I want you to know, when I say that your character was over, I don't mean in a bad way. It worked for what it was. You just had this persona where it's like every time you were on screen, you kind of stole the scene. Your character just, even if you like smiled or something, there was just something about you that I felt was like, this guy's presence on here. It's just, everything was funny, but you know what I mean? Like.
Thank you.
One of the things I really loved playing with as a director was like Jeff's like very iconic, very sort of like, we'll go with overacted. Like
a better word. Use it.
But when you juxtapose that with the two guys who play his centurions who like come in and are sort of abused, but they're so blasé about their jobs, and they're sort of like, kind of these guys who just like clock in and get their paycheck, and they're just annoyed a lot of the time. So you put Jeff's like very exaggerated sort of character next to them, and it every time it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh so hard.
Comments about it. So Joseph says kind of an over-the-top Shakespearean actor from the 60s, and Nancy says exaggerated. So perfect. Better than overacted. I apologize for using that term.
I'm not insulted. It's
supposed to be overacted.
There's also because then as he kind of like unravels and he sort of like loses control with things, I think it's a little bit funnier too. This is a guy whose whole thing is about dominating the room, and then when he gets like kind of undercut and he doesn't quite know how to deal with it, and he's sort of like it, yeah, trying to or like get himself back up.
I also love the really human moments where Rocky Laser, the hero, the dashing hero, has it kind of does do this thing where he breaks his archetype and he's trying his best to sort of like become a human. And I love this moment that Xayno has, that Jeff acted so beautifully, where he is doing this over exaggerated thing. And then, Rocky starts talking about breaking out of his sort of trope. And Xayno just has this moment of like, wait, hang on. Wait, what do you mean?
You can do that?
What do you
mean? I feel like they're both kind of recognizing that they're tropes, like sort of without saying it, but it's kind of funny to juxtapose that, like, because Matt Wise, who plays Rocky Laser, also has a very affectation of like dashing hero from the 40s serials. And yet they devolve a little bit of like, wait, I don't have to be this kind of pompous butthead, and I know I don't have to be angry, and yeah. So it's kind of funny to combine that over the top kind of acting from back in the day with this like weird character recognition of that you're like a trope that you could overcome.
Can I talk about that for a second? Actually, just because that was I'm glad to be talking about this, because I mean there's a way. I mean, you can watch this movie and just like appreciate the fact that it there's a lot of sort of like parody elements, and that it's just sort of like it's just having fun within that genre. But I did intend to, and if that's the level that you appreciate it on, and that's totally fine with me. It's acceptable. If you have a fun time watching it, that's great. But I did, a goal of mine was to do sort of like what Jeremy was saying, is to sort of deconstruct these characters. They sort of, not everybody in the movie, but a couple of the characters, including like Rocky and Xayno, sort of undergo this part where they become a little more self-aware. They become sort of aware that they're just sort of acting out the way that they're expected to behave, and that maybe that's not really working for them anymore. They're like, as they're growing up, I guess, they're sort of realizing that maybe this isn't what makes me, maybe this doing the things that I think are expected of me to do, and the map that I made for myself isn't really working for me anymore, and try to kind of have that be a little bit of a metaphor, like maybe we do that sometimes where we get set in a kind of path that we think that we're supposed to be on just as people, and we realize, oh, maybe I need to change this. Maybe I need to rethink this because this isn't actually the best, healthiest version of me. So there's a little bit of that. That might be a little too heavy-handed. Maybe you just appreciate also.
I saw
the funny stuff too. So I
think it all works perfectly. I mean, and I saw what you were doing there, but it comes across as a very humorous, in a very humorous way.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I say it's fun, it's funny and everything, I really mean it. Every part of it, just you put it together in such a way that every piece works, and in every scene, I think there's at least one joke where it's like a good laugh out loud type of moment, and it's one of those things. It's a great escapism movie. Just to get you out of your mind and whatever is going on in the world's a great thing for an hour and a half to sit down and watch. And, you know, I got to say, I'm just happy you guys created it. You know, it's
so much.
It's such a fun thing. And I want more things. One of the things we do here with IncrediChat, and I do with my Get in Tune, when we interview people and talk with them, we want to promote a lot of like indie stuff. Not everyone knows indie things are out there that have good quality. That, you know, don't get me wrong, I enjoy mainstream stuff, but I look for more of the indie stuff. When I look at comic books, because I do comics, I look at indie comics because I want to see what's out there different from the mainstream superheroes that I can find in any shop. When I look at movies, I try to find indie movies as well because I want to see what are creators doing that not everyone's checking out because it doesn't have the huge budget or the huge company behind it that's publicizing it like crazy. So when we do these things, we want to help you guys. We want to promote, and I'm hoping we're going to get this out there. We're going to get a bunch of views tonight, tomorrow, and in the future, you know, so people find you. The one thing we didn't talk about that I wanted to talk about was, how did you guys get your film up on Amazon? How did Amazon, did you approach Amazon? Did they approach you? How did that work out?
Well, so we made this decision that we thought about this and we played around with it and kind of like went back and forth on doing the film festival circuit with it. And eventually we just said, you know what? No, let's just put it out there. Like, let's just make it available for people to watch, and just skip that. Yeah. You know, just skip that step that a lot of indie films kind of go down. And so we kind of looked into it, and Jeremy did a lot of research and I was doing some research, and then we figured out that like there were a couple of things that we had to do to get it onto Amazon Prime, but they weren't, you know, it wasn't a deal breaker. Jeremy did a vast majority of the work leading up to it, though.
I would say, yeah, that as unsexy as this sounds, anybody can upload a movie to Amazon and have it available. I don't know if they're discriminatory in any way as to flagging any kind of content. I don't know, but they have actually, which is very cool, an open system where you can upload, and if you do everything properly to get it up there, you can upload it and then do your own promotion. Yeah, I think if it doesn't do a certain amount of viewership, then maybe it doesn't last or whatever. But if it does a lot of viewership, then Amazon actually jumps in and helps out at that point. But I think in general, for any indie filmmakers out there who happen to be watching this, if it's at least long enough to be a feature film, I'm pretty sure anybody can actually upload to Amazon, which is pretty cool.
They have a little PDF you can like download that just like explains like the things they need from you, and obviously I'm a graphic designer, so I was able to do like our key art and like our little our poster and all that kind of stuff. I did all that just here at home and made sure it was like the right specs and stuff, and there you go.
And then the closed captioning was really the thing that took the longest. Yeah, you have to have a closed captioned movie to upload it onto Amazon. So that was the thing that sort of like was. Jeff went through and actually took the screenplay and then like watched the film little by little by little and like wrote down what the actual actors actually say.
We didn't always exactly say precisely what the
I would say that if anybody ever wanted to watch the movie a second time with closed captions, there are some sneaky jokes that I dropped in there when we did the closed captioning that are almost just closed caption jokes, where weird explosions are spelled out or just
or something.
Little parenthetical. It's like where it's like strong heroic music or comments that I just thought were funny because
Jeremy added all those.
I can't imagine how many people are watching it with closed captions, but if they do, there's a couple Easter eggs in there just for the hell of it.
Yeah. So once we had all of the requirements that they asked for, and we just happened to be able, between the three of us, we just happened to be able to get all of these requirements done. Then you can just do it and put it out there and cross your fingers.
But to answer your question, George Lucas came to my door and said,
and now apparently like 20,000 people have watched our film.
Really?
Well, yeah, you can get like the analytics of like.
It's mind blowing because when you start out with a 99-seat theater, and you're hoping to fill it, and we fill it a lot of the time, but not every time, and then you move to there's 20,000 people, or unless people are watching it over and over again, I don't know, but like that it's just it was such a labor of love that it is beautiful that people are watching it and enjoying it. It's
been people have been giving it some good ratings, which is really means a lot. It's like wonderful. There's there's a vocal minority who like hate it, but
always
I'd say 15 to 20% of the people who watch it are like, I'm angry at the world now, and but most people are having a good time.
The only review I want to talk about is the one person who gave it 4 stars, and they were like, "This is great. It's so funny. It's just wonderful. But why was it in black and white?"
Would have given it an extra star, but if it had
would have given it the 5 stars, but I don't.
I honestly, I'll definitely have to write a review because I didn't do that, but I have to say that cracks me up about the black and white, number one. But that was one of the things that attracted me to it. I was like, what is this? And this is a black and white. And then I put it on and it's like, film quality, like, I don't know what you guys shot, and obviously some type of video, no one uses film these days, but it was like modern day camera work and that clean, look to a modern day film, but had this beautiful retro feel to it. And I'm like, that's what that took me in, and I fell in love with it.
I'm kind of curious how long you were watching it before. I mean, I guess you knew it was new, right? It was not like you were watching it thinking it was an older movie.
Well, the second I saw how the video looked, I was like, yeah, it's modern. But the you see the first image, I guess it was the poster you made, Jeff, of the space captain there, and like I think it's his heroic pose or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this looks interesting, and then I click on it and I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. And I remember I stopped halfway in, I had to go, like, I don't know, get water or something. I stopped, but I came back. I just started playing it again. I just sat. It was just so fun. I was like, I hate that I have to pause it because it's whatever. I had water, bathroom break, whatever it was. I was just like, I'm just enjoying myself so much in here, and I'm glad that it has that many views already. I really do hope it gets a lot more people who and I said in the beginning, people who have that love for old movie serials, need to see this. I actually reached out to a friend of mine. His name's Paul Castiglia. I don't know if you know him through any social media or whatever. He used to work for Archie Comics. He's done a lot of stuff, but I got to get you guys the name of one of his Facebook pages where he talks about like old movie serials and old, comedies and horror movies and all that stuff. And I think it's mostly comedy stuff he focuses on there. But he's one of those guys who just loves all this stuff. And I called him, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, and I didn't get to. I just left a message. I'm like, Paul, if you get a chance, watch this thing come view, because I would have brought him in tonight to be part of the discussion, because he's just such so knowledgeable in this area. So hopefully you guys can get connected and talk or whatever, and I'll set that up somehow and get you guys the info. But he just,
that'd be great.
Yeah,
he was working. I don't want to name the stuff that he was working on, because I don't know if he wants me to name where he was working. But he's done some, he's written some animation. He's written obviously comics. He's a writer for things, and
Cool.
really really cool stuff. And he's someone I think would love what you guys did here. So I'm going to end in a moment, but before I end, I do have a question. Do you have any upcoming things in the works? Another film, another play? What are you guys doing? Can you talk about anything, or did you all sign?
Well, we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, because I mean, we Lindsey and I, right about the time we were finishing up filming a Space Captain, had twin baby girls, and so
that was literally there was one of the shoots where I was in the hospital on the phone with Jeff, being like, "No, I can't go."
And Jeremy's been having has been just getting a lot bigger in terms of like editing and stuff, and just his work. So, and I'm focusing more on some graphic design and stuff, and things were actually generating income and stuff. So we got a little sidetracked, but I have really wanted to get back into this, and I did have kind of an idea that that I kind of wish she wants me to talk about a little bit about, but it's something I do want to write. I'm going to write it in terms of being a stage play again, but I guess we'll see what happens. But it does kind of it is a little bit inspired by, Manos, The Hands of Fate.
It sounds very familiar to me.
Very famous film on MST3K. It was it was like a really this horrendous movie, and I got really fascinated with the behind the scenes of it. And so there's a little bit of inspiration from that kind of feeding into the next thing that I'm starting to work on, but that's early stages right now. So
but hopefully it'll be sort of another kind of film theater connection kind of project.
Catherine O'Hare says do it in Maryland, please.
Well, that's my friend Carolyn. Yeah, she lives in Maryland. So
I do got to say this, because I'm gonna end in a moment. But first off, I had tons of fun tonight. I love talking to you guys. You guys are great. You created a great product. And I say this sometimes. I say this almost all the time. But when I get to talk with other creative people, it really is inspiring to me. And I actually have something in the works, not with what I don't want to say similar to what you did, but it's a sci-fi adventure story about a hero who kind of has that conceited moment and kind of has a very similar storyline. But I have someone else writing it. I haven't talked to him in weeks. I need to I feel like I should go text the guy, say, how far are you in the story, so I can draw it, Yeah. So thank you for that, because that is it is very inspiring. When I get to talk with people who do this stuff, who are passionate about it, I can hear it when you guys are talking. These are the type of people, not that I just want to talk to, but the people I want to see stuff from. So I want to just invite you back when you guys are ready, when you have a product, whether it's a play, whether it's a movie, it doesn't matter. You're walking down the street and want to shoot an iPhone movie, whatever it is, just feel free to come back, promote it on here, and don't forget.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's really incredible.
I feel a little reinvigorated to kind of get back out and try to get No Tea sort of started again in some form or other, because of this show, you reaching out to us to have us do this, and just some of the amazing responses that we've had, and just people have emailed us about it, and about the thing. And that's I'm kind of friends with some new people now, just because as a result of doing this show. People who
nerds.
So it's really inspiring, and I'm like, we need to pick this back up. We need to
No, I feel like it's such a weird time right now. It's like a great time for writing and for creating, and it's a tough time for putting like a production together or like put on a show or whatever. But I think that also fuels a bit of creativity in the limitations that we all are stuck with right now. And that can be kind of fun to figure out what could we do instead of like a theater performance where we've got to get a bunch of people to come to a place. Can we do, some other kind of thing?
Yeah, let's figure something out.
Yeah, that's great. That's something like me and my business partner Mike, who wasn't on tonight with us. We always say, especially when the quarantine started, we said, you guys now have the time to finally stop talking about a project and actually put one together. I had a friend of mine, Ray Felix, who he was on Tuesday night, and we were doing I was animating one of his characters, and he, we were just talking. He knocked off in the few months we were in quarantine. He knocked off 7 comic books. I'm like, you're looking at 20, 30 pages of story, and he's knocking these things off left and right because he just had the time. I have a children's book I should be done within 2 weeks. What I mean? So it's like we're all just at our creative best right now, and I think that's great. So, and I'm glad that this movie, the feedback you're getting coming on here, has inspired you, Jeff. I actually feel very kind of honored to be part of that inspiration for you. And like I said, you guys are definitely welcome back anytime. Do you have anything you want to say before I put you backstage again for a moment and do my closing?
No, just thank you so much for reaching out. This has been a really fun interview. And it's so nice to see like people in the chat who we haven't talked to in a while or new people. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Yeah, this is great.
You're very welcome. Jeremy, anything you want to say? Or
I was just going to say the same kind of a thing. I think we're very, we worked on Space Captain for a long time, and we were struggling to figure out, as Lindsey said earlier, exactly what home it should have, whether we do, film festivals or we just wanted to share it with people. And it's been so fun having it on Amazon. It sounds like an Amazon plug. I don't
I'm using Amazon to publish my children's book, so I understand what you're doing.
But it's really just been fun because it's just out there, and it's kind of off our, it's moved on from just our insular world, and now a lot of random people like yourself and all these people who are watching right now, Joseph Bruno, and like, it's just fun that it, all the reviews we've been getting, and to me, it's just very exciting that it has a home out there and that people are finding it, and that makes me very happy for the movie, as if it's like a person or something. I'm like,
totally.
Anthropomorphizing the movie itself. I'm like so proud of it for growing up and getting out there in the world.
And one last comment from Joe, who says, not everyone can get to a film festival. So I agree. Thank you for putting it up. Yeah. I'm going to put you guys backstage, just do my closing. And then I just wanted to say a little stuff off camera.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Don't forget No T Productions, notproductions.com, spacecaptainmovie.com, and the No T Productions is on Facebook. I just wanted to let you know that don't forget at 10 p.m., which is in 12 minutes, Tim Bending show with Jody will be on TLC. Next Tuesday, we're going to have Kirk Thatcher, who is known for things such as he worked on special effects on Return of the Jedi. He's written, directed things for the Muppets. He's really, really interesting guy. We're going to have on Tuesday night. I'm switching my Get in Tune, which is usually Tuesday night, and we're going to go on Monday with KJ Murphy, who has been in the independent comic field for decades, started the Comic Artists Guild. I think he has something called things called Guildworks. I got all the names written down somewhere else, not in front of me at the moment. But he will be on Monday night when we do Get in Tune, and on Tuesday night we'll be in IncrediChat. It's just the only switch. We're going to go back the following week to IncrediChat on Monday and Get in Tune on Tuesdays. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend, guys.